今天呢，我们非常开心邀请到生科所的林劭品老师来为我们分享他过去这几年。因为我知道，后来我才知道林老师说他在台大教书的时候一直都是英语授课，我觉得非常了不起啊，真的非常了不起。因为全英语授课这件事情，然后所有的课程，那这么久以来，我觉得这是非常辛苦、非常厉害的一件事情。我想透过今天的这些课堂的分享呢，希望可以跟老师们再学到多一点技巧。因为我自己会在授课的时候会遇到一些瓶颈，那在授课的时候遇到一些也许是挫折。那特别是今天主讲的讲题啊，就是如何让学生获得这些主动的学习能力。我觉得这是我自己在这方面也很想要增进的部分。那老师你也不要太紧张，因为他刚刚跟我说他很忙，然后很紧张，然后怕今天的东西。后面很紧张是，那我希望这是一个 casual 的一个方式。那我们希望呢，老师呢可以彼此有更多的一些交流。那通过一个轻松的方式，虽然说我们定叫午餐交流会啊，那可能要请老师包涵，就是说，因为我们是在未来教室举行，所以午餐要会后才能享用这样。不过呢，我们今天还是非常开心的邀请到林老师来为我们演讲。那我觉得非常值得想要从老师身上学到，就是说跨领域的这件事情。那在座的老师都是来自不同领域，我自己也是来自文学院。那我也特别想要知道说，我们在自己的专业领域的时候，要如何引起学生的这些动力？那接下来我就邀请林老师为我们主讲今天的讲题是如何引导学生从全英语授课之专业领域课程中获取主动学习的能力。大家一起欢迎林老师，谢谢。
Thanks very much. I promised to use English, but I guess I can do a little bit of bilingual if it is necessary. So I'm Shau-Ping Lin from Institute of Biotechnology. Actually, we are from College of Bioresources and Agriculture. I graduated from Department of Animal Science and Technology over here in NTU. And before I went abroad for my Ph.D. studies, I worked for 4 years in hospital. So it's kind of from agriculture to medical studies. And then I went to Cambridge University in UK for more like biomedical and basic biology studies. So throughout the course, I kind of within biology field and try to kind of understand a little bit different essence of biology. And I did my postdoc in New York City, in Columbia University. So today, actually, what I'm demonstrating will be like really damage control. So until 10 o'clock this morning, I have been fighting with like maybe 17 reviews for Ministry of Science and Technology. Yeah, so actually I've been reviewing for like 7 subcategories, and then each category just gave me a few projects, and they thought it's fine, but altogether it was like really crazy. So I'm basically showing you like how to use really limited time and kind of trying to put information together. I think I have an idea of what I want to share with you. But I didn't have time to really go into making very structured slides. But then you may see, I think for all of you, there maybe one day you are like super busy and the course is coming up, and what do you do, right? So, okay, so today's topic is mainly about how to hopefully encourage students to actively learn and to acquire more advanced knowledge in each of our specialized field, and also like through English medium instruction. So in NTU, students, they have really broad spectrum of English ability. So encouraging all of them to really speak up in the class would take some effort. So this may be my only structured slide, but I think this is the kind of take-home message. And for those of you who read Chinese, I put like my vision of a report that I made. You can get like most of my my vision basically from there. So I am hoping after this like 15 years of teaching in NTU and also through English medium, we are hoping we can really prepare the students for the future. And for my specialized field, which some of you may have heard like my very kind of bad demo about my recorded course. From my recorded course, you will see I still make a lot of grammatical mistakes and my pronunciation will not be perfect, but hopefully this is still enough for conveying the information. So for preparing students for the future, especially in like my more specialized field is called epigenetics, which deals with when we already have a set of genes, we already have the ceiling of our potential, but whether we can fulfill our best potential, like for agriculture, like for crops or for livestock, whether they get the gene, but they may not have the best performance. And so for that, how do you turn on the gene or turn off the gene? So it's that kind of quite specialized field. And it can be even counterintuitive. We will have a special expert over here, Professor Li as well. So she has been teaching that mainly in Chinese, I guess. Right. So sometimes it's not that easy to really bring students into the field. So there are several tips that I do. And I think the most important thing I want to convey to students will be, first of all, to have really important foundation for the specialized subject. So I may use, say, at least 3 weeks trying to get students into the field. And apart from just using my slides and also, maybe using my slides, and I write a lot of, not a lot of, from time to time, I try to write some review article, either in Chinese or in English, with my lab members. And some of my lab members, they just happen to have really good artistic expertise, so we can prepare some like really nicely done slides. That will be quite important and quite helpful for help me to incorporate into introductory course. So that's something. So I think if we can separate into several different types of course, for all of you, I guess we sometimes are invited to give maybe 1 week or 2 weeks lecture in a, for example, a course like molecular biology or just biology in general or in your specialized field. You may only be handling 1 or 2 weeks. So in those cases, if I can, usually I will try to write a warming up letter to students. And for example, for molecular biology, it's a really heavy course, and I understand for them to incorporate like epigenetic, this kind of really specialized field within a few hours, like 2 or 3 hours, it's going to be really hard because that subject alone can be for the entire semester. So I try to write to them and in like in plain English as much as I can. So I try not to use jargon. So for example, I think DNA, protein, I think most people will understand, even for cross-disciplinary or for any field, people from any fields. But for RNA or the proteins that wrapping DNA, we call them histones. Histone will be a jargon. So if it's the first time I try to deliver some information to students, I try not to say histone. I just say proteins that's wrapping up the DNA double helix, something like that. So, so hopefully just trying to warm them up so that they are not so nervous about the subject. And this is also where sometimes the online video is really comes in handy. So for example, this one. So I will spend some time searching for some suitable like illustrations or videos that's kind of short but to the point, and also they can have like a really very good like illustrations. It's weird, sorry, something wrong. Right. So okay, this one. Just miss that one. So that was like a cartoon, and it was very nicely illustrated. So within, for example, 5 minutes or 8 minutes, so the students can get the opportunity to warm up. And to encourage them to discuss in the class, I may just give them like one of the video like that. And sometimes I give them a very easy like review article that I wrote with my lab members that can be in Chinese. If that's easier for Chinese speaking students. And I will try to set up some activities over the class. For example, for students who are really fighting for like a top score, they may be interested in this. For a pretty hard subject, then if they want to secure some score, I may have open like a few bonus points for students. So for those like video or my review article that I prepared, maybe I can play this one a little bit. So the previous one was cartoon, and this video was slightly different. So because of COVID-19, so actually there are more and more online information that we can.
Hello everyone, I'm Jeannie Lee, I'm a professor of genetics at Harvard Medical School. And I'm also a faculty member.
So many professors over the world, like this one's from Harvard, so she may be, so they can record like this topic for maybe 2 hours or even 3 hours. So that will be like extended reading information. However, sometimes I will use this. So I may just use their slide. So in the course, usually I certainly would not play like for the entire hour. So I either, but I may just point into like several important slides and either use their words, then because like over here for YouTube, you can turn on the subtitle. And for students, they sometimes can even change it into Chinese subtitle if they want to watch it afterwards. So really taking advantage of this kind of online material. So I can let the student listen to their words first, like for maybe 3 minutes, and then I use my own interpretation. If really necessary, I put in a little bit of Chinese. And so that I think for monotone, whatever language it is, the medium, if it is monotone only for us talking, usually students fall asleep like quite easily. So sometimes just with another voice, either it's like a video like this, or from time to time we, in our institute, we encourage professors to have enjoyed the course in a way that we will not get extra pay. However, we can sit through each other's course and sometimes stimulate some discussion. So in my case, I do epigenetics in animal, and one of the professors in our institute, he does epigenetics in plants. So we are kind of know the concept, but we don't know the details about each other's expertise. And so when we started this kind of joint course, so I attend his course, he attend my course, and sometimes we, because at least we have some background, we will be interested to know what they are talking about. So we will have some discussion. And with that, students kind of will also learn from our discussion. And sometimes, so for us, because when we are talking about our very specialized field, we may go into too much details. But then the other professor will realize, okay, that may be too hard. The student may not understand the whole thing. So he may ask questions, so that also give the students the opportunity to learn from different angles. So those are some ways that we try to encourage more discussion. So in my experience, I usually can get students to talk, like in whatever languages, really answering questions or ask questions or express themselves. In the first class, if I have the entire semester's class, in the first week, it's really warming up week. I will take the entire, for example, 2 hours or 3 hours. However, the content will not be fixed. I will always prepare more than enough content. However, I would like to give students the opportunity to introduce themselves and express their expectation from the class. with that, I usually will fine-tune or completely rearrange the content of my lecture for that semester based on the background of the students. Yeah, because for my course, especially English media course, because in NTU we do not have another of this. So there are students from engineering department, from physics department, from computer scientists. They may just come to my course without actually really necessary background. So based on students' knowledge background, sometimes we really need to adapt. And with that, the flip class kind of learning will be, or techniques will be quite useful. Yeah, because for a class where you have students who already know a lot, if you go into details, they will be bored. And for other students who may not even catch the important keywords. And so for that, it will be in between like the preparation, so give them some warming up material in advance. And I usually will group students based on their background. It's really trying to mix different background students as much as possible. So for one group, I will have maybe engineer students and biology students and people who already have taken my course for maybe 4 or 5 times. In those cases, they can really help each other. So for the examination, what I usually do will be for midterm exam, if it's a course that I can control, then I usually give them open book exam, open everything, open internet, open everything. So what I try to do is really communicate with them. Because from the class, sometimes everyone just nods. It looks like they know everything, but when you actually ask them to write something down, you may realize some of the concept can be really wrong. That is really important, the foundation. So I think for a course, eventually what they need is to really get the important concepts right, and then it's basically how to acquire knowledge. And it can be video, can be searching for websites, can be documentaries. If we have time, I will go into one of the example that I played last semester. So we would watch a documentary video together and have some discussion. So, right, so the midterm exam for me would be important for checking whether the student got the right idea. And I try to give them like a kind of almost stressless learning experience. Is that if they are really unsatisfied with their score, I may allow them to have bonus opportunity, right? Either by oral or just rewrite the set questions. But of course, for the top student, a few top students, I will keep their scores the highest. Otherwise, it won't be fair, right? For critical analyzing ability, the activity I put in the class usually it depends on students' level of knowledge. If they are pretty on the same page as I am, then I may give them some presentation earlier. However, for most of the class, it may take half of the semester to really build all the necessary foundation. And then for the second semester, we will start playing the author and the reviewer game, role-playing game. So, because I'm mainly teaching graduate school. So graduate school students, they all need to write their own thesis. And for Ph.D. students, they certainly will even need to publish their work. So knowing what the reviewer's angle, I think is really important experience for all of us actually, to think about our work and to think how to deliver our work, how to highlight the important parts that we think it has to get through, otherwise the reviewer will not understand. So like some students will be playing the authors. They are in charge of presenting, it doesn't need to be the entire manuscript, but presenting the key messages. And also how, in our field, is how they use different experiments to get those get those theory or those working model. So basically presenting the take-home message and how the authors got the take-home message. And the students who is playing the reviewers role, they actually have the tougher job. So they need to not only understand the story, but also kind of understand the field a little bit to see what's new and and maybe the experimental design is wrong or something, right? So, for this tool, I think I usually will spend quite some time introducing the backgrounds of experimental design and how to interpret experimental result, so that the student will know it's not just like reading textbook and just getting all the messages just like passively, but also actively judging whether the experimental foundation was really solid, or it could be just a connection, a correlation. There may not be like a solid support for a particular model that the author trying to convey. Right. So with that kind of activity, we just step by step trying to increase their critical thinking ability, I hope. Right. So for those activity, I personally sometimes give them individual score, and sometimes give them group score. So if it is a class with really heterogeneous students, I may introduce group score earlier. I give them task, and maybe 3 students as a group. They know they are going to get the same score, but maybe all of them need to present or need to do something, and then so they will help each other. So if those activities were designed in a class, and for example give them 5 minutes, and I may just go down to each table or just each groups and trying to see how they are. When I give the examples for them to discuss, and I try to let them think of their own interpretation. It can be wrong, it can be correct, but whatever they think of, I want to listen to their opinion. Okay, so with that, usually most students will be comfortable in speaking up in the class, maybe before midterm. Usually it takes 3 weeks, and sometimes it's slightly longer, sometimes in the first class everyone is already speaking. Especially when we are going to have more and more international students in MPU, that's for sure. Sometimes some international students, they may dominate the class though. So then we be answering questions or asking questions all the time. So that will be sometimes we need to kind of balance. And that's also sometimes we give like a group credit, and I would just let them know, okay, you have expressed a lot, so we would like to have your group member answer that question instead. So sometimes it's also some ways to keep the class interactive. Right. So for my class, I usually would like to have like the students have not only oral expression abilities but also written ones. So for the final exam, I often ask them to write. It can be a reviewer's comments. So learning from the author reviewers role-playing game, or I let them write like a mini review, or news and views. News and views will be like maybe 1 or 2 papers, just introduce something. It has to be from this year, or maybe the latest, maybe from the last year. So they are keeping abreast of what's happening in the field. So I think I will finish this one and just give you lots of examples. So for global vision establishment, I invite a lot of international speakers to my class, either in person or online. So nowadays, first like online lecture or online seminar is quite useful and popular. And sometimes it's just some webmail. what is it called? Webinar. Yeah, there are some webinars on the internet. If I see something is similar or it's relevant to our topic, then the thing is, if we just ask the student to go online to watch that without too much incubation, they may get a lot if they're already pretty good, but they may not really understand it. So for most of my international speakers that I invite, I would put the activity maybe, if possible, for 3 weeks. So the first week, I will try to give some introduction for the field and the speaker's particular expertise. I try to warm them up a little bit. And the second week will be the invited speakers seminar. And then the third week will be students' turn to give a presentation. And we do that a lot in genomic and system biology program because it's a module, and because the students are going to present, so they totally are interested to learn from the seminar, and also because they are already preparing their own presentation, so they may have some detailed questions. So for those invited speakers, I am pretty happy to say almost every time when they come to my class or just join our program, they are usually very happy about the students' questions, because the student can really interact with them and ask the questions maybe the reviewers will ask. So we may not be able to give them a lot of other things in Taiwan or online, but what the reward they will get will be really a group of engaging students. Sometimes that's not easy even to use, so sometimes students are just disconnected with the class. But with engaging students and asking good questions, and actually many of the students eventually, like over here, so we have this invited seminar, and afterwards we have some like research discussions. So we really set up real like international research collaboration, and a student who has been always dreaming about go to France. So actually went to our speakers lab for like 2 months or so. So it's like a dream come true. And in our program, we also have many students ended up going into the speakers lab, or keep it light. So for it happens to be from France as well. So Dr. Hervé Theis, so he came to Taiwan a few years ago for 1 week. So in that 1 week, we have very intensive. We have 2 lectures, and we have a conference seminar. And in between, because there is a weekend, and he happens to be not only a very good scientist, but also a really good marathon runner. In France, I think he has won Southern France International 100-kilometer competition, the championship, for several years. Right. So he can, and then it so happens that weekend there is a Taiping Shan marathon competition. And so just in between his lecture, he went to the competition and got first prize. And you know what? This student of mine, because we talked about his work in the class, and he's like super smart. He's maybe the 3rd student in the entire France when he was in college or something. And so we also have some research collaboration. And this student is now his wife. Wow. Right? Like 1 week, 2 lectures, 1 conference, and got the wife back. Right. So my entire lab, including my family, we all accompanied him to Taiping Shan, because it's actually pretty far away, and I think the competition, we need to get ready from 4 o'clock in the morning. So it was like a crazy trip, but you know. Right? So we have a publication afterwards, and then yeah, a student got her like a love of the life. Okay, so yeah, those are I do that quite a lot. So either inviting speakers to Taiwan, that takes a lot of time. Not just to hosting them and preparing students, but actually the administrative work actually is terrible. So for his case, I think in that semester, because my quota for invited speaker from the Ministry of Science and Technology was already taken to a course that I was organizing. So for that course, for each year, the students can get to invite one speaker. And usually international speakers is even well laureate. They can turn you down very easily, but usually they don't turn students down. So for students to organize the entire invitation and learning to write grants for getting travel grant for the invited speaker is also important training. So in that particular year, so my quota was given to students. They are using my name to learn how to write research travel grant for another speaker. So when I invited him, I couldn't use my own quota. So eventually it took me like 6 different routes to find, like getting a few $1,000 from here and from there and from the college, from different institutes, from society, and eventually we finally pay for his trip. This is not that easy. Yeah, but it's worthwhile to let students have the opportunity to really interact with really top scientists. And over the last 2 years, because of COVID, we usually do online. But still we keep the format. We still have the first week having introductory material about the speaker's field or the speaker's work. And then for them to give presentation. And although it's online, but we usually have very good discussion session. And a lot of questions are actually from students. So that's also, and I think, yeah, one of my students also went to his lab in Cincinnati at USA later as well. Okay. So I guess that very much wraps up the global vision part. As for interdisciplinary discussion or at least the opportunity to expose to different fields. So I hosted one of the courses called From Years of Science last year, in our institute, and including Professor Liu and Zheng. So we invited speakers from really very different fields. He's from more or less from chemistry, although he talks about sustainability, like really a big topic. And we invited people from literature, from linguistics, and also many invited speakers from industry. So that also gave students pretty good, well, it's different, but now it's more and more difficult to keep students in the lab, to stay in academics actually. So we do have a lot of invited speakers from the industry, and so from our graduates, the graduates from Institute of Biotechnology in NTU, I think there's a pretty good percentage of students going to industry. Even a proportion of students actually establishing their own business, and they are earning like 10 times of our salary. But it is like this. But at least we are happy that we are incubating them so that they have the different abilities, like throughout their staying with us. Okay. So another example for interdisciplinary, this was kind of crazy. I'm doing biology, biotechnology, maybe a little bit of bioinformatics, but for digital marketing, that's really something really very far from my original expertise. But we executed this intelligent agriculture project initially, of course, I want to just giving like my gene expression, molecular biology expertise into the team. But then I realized for this program, they don't need this expertise. So eventually, I ended up handling and trying to create. It was super difficult digital marketing related project because when our collaborators, like really outstanding collaborators from EE, from medical doctor, Shau-Ping, or from biotechnology, and from and some of the professors, they are dealing with the waste product for the poultry waste, basically, and turning them into fertilizers, for example. And for the EE, electronic engineering professors, and also we have data scientists over here. They establish many like new tools, but eventually the important thing is, if for example for eggs that we are studying at that time, or layer, so the hens actually laying the eggs, of course the cost is going to be increased, and whether the consumers will be willing to buy those slightly more expensive eggs. So we had so I set up with my team learning from scratch to do survey and trying to learn the behaviors, expectation, and the amount of money they are willing to pay, and also trying to help some farmers to advertise their different products. So how to distinguish their own brand name compared to the eggs you can just get from supermarket. Actually, there are also many brand names. I mean, from grocery store, for example. Right. So for this particular activity, we actually went to Taichung to give this workshop. Yeah, because in Taichung it's closer to those layer farmers. Yeah, because in Taipei, not many people raise chicken, right? So our industry is mainly in Taiwan. So we went to National University, and we grouped the students into maybe 10 different groups. And for each group, we align them with one particular farm. So they will get some information from the farmer about how their eggs are different, whether they are organic or something. And also, so I got a team going down with me in National University, and we let the layer farmer and the students coordinately develop an advertising article for digital marketing. And I brought, actually, I have to invite my husband, who cannot get any money from here because he's my husband. So not even the travel fund. So I have to pay for his high-speed rail ticket. But he has been doing digital marketing, and he knows how to teach the student not only writing the article for human beings to read, but also for the search engine to read. So how to optimize the search engine, or this called search engine optimization. So they had the opportunity to really create something together with the farmer and have something that can actually post it online. So I guess what I'm trying to deliver is to activate students. There are many different ways. So for that particular article for their course, I think they are doing something like 畜产经营 is like management of livestock or poultry science in their particular course. So that was a very important like a final exam score for the student. So they also tried very hard. So their product was really good, and they got very good feedback from my husband and from our entire evaluation team. So hoping that was a good example to share. So there are some easier parts. So for whether international students or local students, from time to time we notice that for the top students in the class, I mean top for this particular subject, they may already know, but there may be some students lagging. What I noticed is that they only need maybe 1 hour. If I can give them 1 hour, those lagging students may catch up, and for the rest of the semester they will be fine. So if I notice, because we may have give out some questions for students to answer, and I can tell when some students are kind of avoiding the activity, and usually there's a sign that they may have problem in understanding. So I may use like a weekend, or sometimes we encounter, for example, Christmas Day happens to be our for our course date. Of course, Christmas actually we do have lecture. So I would try to, especially when we have a lot of international students, we try to let everyone like bring a bit of their cultural cuisine or something, that they can have more relaxed activity. So when I do this kind of discussion parties, either over weekends or in the class, if it is over weekends, I already say that's not compulsory. So they can come if they want, but it's weekend, so they don't have to. But actually, the turnout rate is usually very high, so surprisingly. So and sometimes that 1 or 2 hours turn out to be the most active discussion throughout the entire semester. I don't know, for some reason, because they come because they want to come, not because they are forced. Sometimes that seems to be a very good initiative. And many of our course students, not even my lab members, we ended up, or I may organize some activities for international students, especially when there are some interesting like cultural event. For example, this is Physiology, so it's like a puppet, very cultural. And I just invited international students, and we had a good, we had that exhibition, went to that exhibition together, and that also happens to be side by side co-exhibited with Tang Prize, the Tang Jiang laureate. So there's another hall basically just introducing the science. And I think it's that year, maybe, it was not the year for CRISPR case, it was the next year. And so we had like a cultural activity and also scientific activity at the same time, in the same afternoon. So, yeah, I guess, I know this is not for everyone. I mean, for each professors, I may enjoy those activities with students, especially when they are voluntary. If I force them to come, usually the atmosphere may not be very good. But whenever it's voluntary, either it's for scientific activity or cultural activities, or activities with international students, or organizing conferences with me, like that's a lot of work. So so far, after coming back to Taiwan, I have helped organizing maybe 20 conferences so far. So it's, yeah, a lot. And whenever we have a conference, we may have like a really top, I don't know whether I put it here. I may have deleted it. So we may have like a Royal Society fellow, just like someone really high-end for as a conference speaker. So from time to time, I will try to encourage my students who attend the conference, even if we are not organizing together. I try to encourage even lab course students. Sorry, I'm tired. Not only lab members, but also students who took my course. So again, that will be voluntary. So that will not be compulsory, it's optional. So if they are interested, they can join the conference. And usually I try to adapt my the lecture, my contents a little bit to the topic or even the specific work that invited speaker is going to introduce. So usually it kind of warms the students up and they will be interested to attend the entire conference. Yeah, I think that's mostly what I want to share. I mentioned at the very beginning that I had let me see. So last semester I tried this out. I tried to introduce it's a Netflix, right? So it's a documentary film. It's about the CRISPR case. It's about gene editing. I try to group students into, again, for those students who, for this particular session, they are going to get group score. So I group them into several, well, I made them into several groups. And for each group, from this documentary, the person is giving the opinion from many different angles, even including people who think they call themselves biohackers. They think everyone can be scientists, everyone can just do genetic editing at home. You can try to enhance your own genetic material. So just really a very distinct opinion from a totally different angles. And for patients, HIV positive patients who are willing, who was willing to just use himself as a test subject for those homemade drugs. So that's like really dangerous. But I grouped the students into three, and I asked like group one to understand the perspective from, for example, from a scientist and from a biohacker and from patient, etc. So I let them trying to think through the different point of view. It could be that they don't need to agree with whatever those people say, but I would like them to try to understand why they said so, why they feel that way, why they feel like this kind of technology should not only be in the hands of scientists, and why why everyone should be able to do this, for example. And so I gave them this introduction, and students came up with pretty good presentation, and they really went into like the storyline to really introduce different opinion. I think because they are preparing as a group, like each group. So I'm pretty sure they will watch the video together and they discuss like different opinion. I'm giving them this activity partly because I think this is what I meant for the future, right? So this is an ongoing topic, ongoing debate, and I'm hoping our students will understand people's different perspectives and learn how to express their own opinion. And what I didn't expect was students were pretty good. So they really go into I do ask them to learn a little bit about the technique, because there's one technique, it's called gene drive. It may completely eliminate one species, potentially have the ability. And that's being used in controlling mosquito in countries with malaria. Because people are dying, I think every several minutes, I think. Yeah, but then of course it's a lot of controversy. Yeah, so I try to let students discuss into that, and then try to learn to express their opinion and trying to appreciate that other people may have totally different opinion. I think with that, I will stop my talk here, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
现在开放让老师们提问。老师 ，Yes.
Dr. Lin, I truly enjoyed your lecture, and congratulations for your success of the course. And may I I call this a 6-star course, not 5-star, 6-star, and I've been taking notes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, I have one question, maybe one experience to share.
Yes.
It's a good idea of supplementary information, and I belong to the Department of Geography, who will provide stipend for speaker. So once I invited a speaker from Suzhou Daxue, Dongwu Daxue, and too bad he did not speak English. So I did some of the translation. And the topic is, because I study migration, and the topic is on the Vietnamese brides in Czechoslovakia.
Oh, I see.
He's one of the very rare persons educated in Ph.D. sociology in Czechoslovakia. So this is a share with you. My question is, I have probably a kind of a problem of facing students from different levels.
Yeah.
Different disciplines, okay, civil engineering, political science, and sociology would be good. Very few geography department students, my students don't take my course. Anyway, I don't mind. But if you are dealing with a class with occasionally one PhD student, and a graduate student from the 3rd year, graduate student in master's program, and a freshman,
Yes.
and can I hear your experience about that?
Okay. Yes, I got those combination, combined class all the time. So yes, for my class, from freshman, like I once have a 1st year student from medical college, two of them that are actually very good, and the 2 PhD students. So it is indeed not easy. The several techniques I think I more or less introduced. Let me see whether I can go into a little bit more depth. Still the basic skills including like warming up, like supplementary information for the simple one, and for like really advanced one, like even for PhD students, for example. So, okay, like for many of my slides, let me just show you. So many of my slides, like this will be just like one, So many of my slides I have got pre-recorded lecture. So the lecture can be, so this I may only take maybe 2-3 minutes, or maybe more, okay, this one maybe 5 minutes to introduce. But I have maybe 1 hour or 2 hours lecture pre-recorded. So for students who are interested, we can go into it. So I think the solution, if there's a solution for a really the students with really mixed level of knowledge, I guess it's what we expect from them. If we are dealing with a class that's linked to an examination, like national examination, for people like from pharmacy or you have a national examination to take care of, and for the curriculum it may be more fixed. But for other curriculum that I'm usually hosting, we can really have different expectations from different students. So what I try to, for example, for midterm exam, is going to be in my midterm exam, it's always individually scored. So, but because it's an open book exam, and they can rewrite if they are not satisfied. So, and I usually will give them some feedback as well for after I read their exam papers. And so I can be pretty sure that all the students coming out from my class at least have the basics. And from the exam question also, okay, it's also about how I accept. For example, yesterday, for a midterm exam question I set up was like, we were talking about those RNAs, like long RNAs that can have like very dramatic mechanism. So it's quite complicated, molecular mechanism. But I asked them to just choose one phenomenon, like one disease or one physiological phenomenon. For example, I introduced like X inactivation. 2 X chromosome for females, 1 will be shutting down. So that kind of example that may be easier for the public to understand. And I challenge them to just choose one. They don't need to learn all of the different nominal. They just choose one. And I challenge them to really explain what that is, as if they are explaining to their roommates from different subjects. So I think that would be, that maybe is my basic requirements to students. For whatever course they took from me, I'm hoping at least they can say something about that. Right, so that kind of training I got was mainly from Cambridge, where we had our department and our college was separate. Our college more like dormitory. So in college, we have students from art, from history, from literature, from medical school, from engineering, from biology. So we are really a mixed environment. And we are kind of forced to eat together every day. And that was given us the opportunity to really talk to people who are smart, but who do not know your expertise. So I'm hoping for my students, they will at least be able to have some background knowledge and something for them to judge whether people are talking nonsense and really misleading. Yeah, for every genetics, people kind of use it in all kinds of different weird ways. And some are really wrong. I may even just give an example. Okay, try not to say that. Try not to second those opinions if you hear from the public or from any media. Yeah. So I guess for a spectrum of students, is for just set the floor up, just so that every student at least they will have something to come out with them. And as for that, there can be no ceiling. Yeah, because for students who really want to go into advanced understanding, I can either give them some like newly published work, or sometimes talk about our ongoing research work, where we don't even know what the answer is, and challenge them to design experiments to tackle those questions. And for students, I may just give them one direction and I ask them to look into references. So I guess managing a mixed class is not easy. And I kind of give different expectations. And for final term paper, written paper, because they can choose different format. They can choose like really difficult ones. They really need to look into to really understand, or they can choose a format is more like a popular science writing. Yeah, so that hopefully everyone will get something maybe that's suitable for the level of knowledge they have at that moment.
Probably can take another question or two, short questions, if we have any. For if
I hope I have kind of covered most of the questions asked in advance. Is there anything that I didn't cover maybe?
Can I have a quick question? Earlier on, you were talking about having this critical thinking and communication. Those kind of training can be either oral or written. And my personal experience is that oral presentation or oral discussion is challenging for most of the students. And how do we motivate them? In the sense that if the professor is asking yes/no question, then those questions will be easy to be answered. If the professor is asking content questions, then the silence will just drop. And how do we motivate that? Yes, it's difficult in the sense if we want to put it into the oral communication, as opposed to written or take home or like group projects. How do we stimulate them? By weekly meetings, or how do we do that in class? What's your past experience?
Yeah. So it really depends on students' personality, right? So some of them they don't care about their English proficiency. And I really encourage them, just don't worry about, and I will not be speaking perfect English anyway. So really just let them know as long as you can express. And often, I do allow students to speak in Chinese if they cannot express themselves. But I will do immediate interpretation if I can. And sometimes if I do not know the word, actually I have very limited vocabulary. I don't know whether you noticed or not. So from time to time I will ask students to help me. For a particular term I could not explain. Some students may be able to do, or I just say like, okay, Google it. So from time to time, I finish the sentence for students if they are really struggling. And I will try to ask whether that's what they meant. And if not, they will try to correct me. And for the answer, even when the answer is really far off, I still kind of try to encourage. But I need to balance whether I take too much time kind of the wrong direction. So I may at least appreciate why they have that direction of thinking, and then trying to bring them back, so that they know whatever they say, they won't be like judged or criticized. So it's the other way around. It's usually, I think it's actually, I don't know which one is more difficult. When some students are really dominating, it's talking all the time. Sometimes it takes to cool them down. Sometimes it can be even more difficult. But really encouraging students to speak up, like I mentioned, the grouping, when they are sharing the same score, or even score or not. Sometimes, using score to encourage students actually a pretty bad technique. So I usually will give them maybe 2 to 3 minutes for the group, within the group to discuss, so that they will have something to say. Maybe if it's not their own opinion, supposedly it's representing the group. And for the group, because they have discussed, so I may point, okay, student 1 instead of student 2 has been always talking, I may ask student 1 to, or even if the student 2 is always talking, then I think he or she will be fine if I stop them like from time to time. And I say, okay, I think it's things you have discussed. Can you let student 1 to present what your answer is or what your opinion is? That most of the time, because the atmosphere I kind of put it, sometimes I don't mind people eating like in my class. So I sometimes even prepare like some candies or something. So people are kind of in a more relaxed mindset. So that I don't know whether that helps, but that's kind of my style.
Thank you very much. I think your students really lucky and privileged. I also learned a lot.
I spent quite some money on it.
谢谢。那我们在座还有没有老师最后想要提问的？如果没有的话，老师请。
Sorry, actually, I'm a master's student. I'm not.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm a master's student from mechanical engineering. And I was curious about like how do you grade student, because if you say like giving score, you score to grade student is not a very good technique. But like for my TA experience, I feel like if some student like they got the better score on the previous test or previous homework, they're much more motivated to learn after class. So have any suggestions or?
Right. So for either for homework or for like an exam, etc., I try to give them feedback. So usually my class is not super big, so maybe 20 people, or maybe I can still handle. For really big class, then of course we need TA. So if possible, I give them some feedback, and I give them opportunity to have bonus opportunity. So after exam, I think that's quite important, because often students after exam they realize they don't get good score and they just gave up. The entire subject, that would be really a shame. So I usually try to maybe talk to them one by one if possible. To just make sure that they are on top of it, and if they are motivated, if they want to learn better. Like last semester, I noticed one student was lagging. I think from week 3 onwards until maybe midterm, I noticed he is like in good attitude, but he may not be following. And his midterm was like really bad. I was too busy at that time. I noticed, but I didn't have time to talk to him before midterm. Right. So, but after midterm, we just had like a lunch together. I just invited him to lunch, and luckily he's willing to accept my invitation. And just over lunch, we realized that I used like some video and use my own words, and just within 1 hour, I think he picked up everything. And also, okay, the exam question I sent it that way because I think those are important concepts. So I just from each question, I basically try to give him the answer and make sure that he understands. And then he rewrote it because I think that computer student was good that if he did not understand, he would say he didn't understand. So I know I need to use another way to explain. So I guess, so indeed, so afterwards, after midterm, he actually did really well. Yeah, so I was really happy that I spent that 1 hour with him. Yeah, otherwise I would have lost that student. Yeah.
好，那我们今天的分享会就到这边，我们再一次谢谢林老师，谢谢。